Hello everybody, I'm Zak Shelhamer. Welcome to my Adventure Life podcast and Vodcast on BeAlive. For this episode, we have Matthias Giraud. Matthias is a professional ski base jumper. If you've ever been online and you saw a video of a guy skiing down a mountain, going off a cliff, opening up a parachute, turns around, there's an avalanche chasing him, that was Matthias. He's gone viral many times, but he's also overcome a lot of obstacles in order to get where he is in his career right now. I think it was a really interesting conversation. I've known this guy for a very long time. We've done some incredible trips together. He's also an incredible father and an inspirational human being. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Over the years, I've met some of the top outdoor and adventure athletes in the world, and through the My Adventure Life series, we're getting to see how their passion has fueled their careers. I really hope you enjoy getting to know some of these people as much as I have. Matthias, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. I'm super honored to have you aboard for this one. For those of you that aren't familiar with Matthias, Matthias is known for going big, so big that he needed a parachute. Isn't that right, Matthias? Isn't that kind of how it all started? This guy is a professional base jumper, but also a professional skier. He's an incredible mountaineer, very experienced. He's French, in case you couldn't pick up that accent.
Thanks for putting it this way, man. It's cool. I'm honored. You're making me sound way better than I actually am.
No, you're really great. And if anyone's ever Googled ski base jumping, I'll guarantee they've come across one of your videos because you have probably some of the most viral videos on the internet for ski basing and base jumping, don't you think?
Yeah, probably. I think I mean, we're not many ski base jumpers to begin with, so there's not a ton of competition. But yeah, it's I was really fortunate to have my career really take off as a skier and base jumper right when YouTube and all that stuff was taking off at the same time. So it was just kind of like the perfect storm.
All right, so I know athletes love quizzes, right?
Quizzes? Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're gonna jump right into the hot seat. The acronym for BASE was coined by filmmaker Carl Bonesh when he filmed the first jump in what year? 1968, 1978, or 1985?
I would have to say 78.
Oh, you are correct. All right, nice.
I wasn't sure, but I was trying to get the timeline straight in my head.
All right, but base jumping started off before that, didn't it?
Well, technically, base jumping, I mean, the acronym is building, antenna, span, which is a bridge, and earth, which is a cliff. But then it evolved as just jumping off static objects with a parachute, so not jumping from an aircraft. So if you apply this rule, technically, the first person to do a base jump was a French guy.
Are you sure?
In the
What
18th
year?
century.
Okay.
I think it was 1780 something. I can't remember. It was Louis Sébastien Lenormand, who was kind of like a French, I think, inventor. And he jumped off the observatory in Montpellier in south of France with a piece of silk. And somehow he landed safely and walked away.
Nice.
So I think that qualifies as a base jump. But yeah, granted, it was not the modern form of base jumping. But I still like to claim that a French guy did it first.
Okay, well that's fair. I mean, I can't go back and disprove that, so we'll give that one to him.
Okay.
I love it, but I mean, it's obviously base jumping is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. Like, what inside of you made you want to pursue that?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I grew up listening to parachuting stories from my dad. My dad was in a 9th Shock, which is the commando regiment in France, and he did his military service in it. And he did about 100 jumps, which is funny. He only did 2 free falls. Everything was, static line, like when they send all the guys like one after another out of the plane and the parachute opens right away. That's what he did. But
wow.
He kept very fond memories of it, even though he's afraid of heights. And sharing all his stories about parachuting just became so powerful for me as a kid. That I always knew I was going to jump off stuff with a parachute. But then when I was 9 years old, I saw my first images of base jumpers, and right there was a movie with extreme skiers and snowboarders. You know, it was the 80s, so it was all about extreme, right? So they were bungee jumping and skiing and snowboarding and skydiving and base jumping, and right there I was so intrigued and enamored by that movie that I went and saw it 4 times in a row at the theater.
Wow.
And for me, there was no question that this was almost like a calling, you know, where it's like, okay, this is the tribe that I belong to. And it was the first time that I saw, it was more than just base jumping. It was the first time I saw men being willing to pay the ultimate price, which would be getting badly hurt or potentially dying, to pursue what they love so much. And for me, that was so strong that in my 9-year-old mind, it became the definition of being a man. And I valued it so much that he ended up just guiding my I don't know, my perception and codes of the world. And for me, that was it. That was the ultimate. It wasn't necessarily financial success or doing well in school or doing this or that would allow you to be accepted as a strong member of society. For me, it was just this powerful activity that just takes over your whole life, and I thought it was so beautiful that there was no question for me. I had to do it.
How old were you when you did your first base jump?
I did my first base jump at I just turned 24 years old, so it was 11 years ago.
Wow. So was your dad pretty supportive of this decision? I mean, you guys must have talked about it.
My dad knew I was skydiving, and my mother as well. But my mom was getting mad at me. She said, "Why are you jumping out of planes with parachutes?" And I'm like, "I'm training for something." And she was like, "No, you're a skier. You don't need to jump out of planes with parachutes." And my dad knew I was jumping, but they never really asked what I was trying to do with it.
Yeah.
And then I learned to base jump. I didn't tell anything to my family. And on my 20th base jump, I ski base jumped off Mount Hood.
Yeah.
And I got the front page of Yahoo, and they saw it online, and they clicked on the video, and the last thing they saw was their son jumping off a 230-foot cliff with skis and opening a parachute and flying away. That's how they learned that I base jump.
Can you describe the sensations of base jumping? I think to a lot of us, to me, it's a very foreign concept. And I've done certain things in my life that have been like thrill-seeking, I would say. Like I did it for the thrill. But I still have no idea what that sensation's like. Can you walk me through like everything? I mean, like from the minute you're tightening up your backpack, magic backpack.
Yeah, it is a magic backpack. Base jumping is it starts long before you even put on your rig. When you pack your parachute and you prepare mentally for your jump, right? Or you're doing the math or scouting or whatever, and you start feeling this excitement that you kind of have to contain as well, right? To be efficient at what you're doing. And then as you approach the object that you're going to jump off or ski off, it's overwhelming and painful.
The mixed emotions?
Yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster. That's the thing. Nobody has told me before I started base jumping that it was going to be an emotional roller coaster. I kind of expected that it was going to be an emotional roller coaster, but I didn't know it. Yeah. And it's you go through the different stages of fear, right? When it just hits you, and then you're just like, "Oh my God, this is a horrible idea," and you just want to, hunker down and you almost like walk away from it. But no, as you power through, then you start getting in the zone, and then you start, you still afraid, but you start to concentrate and focus, and you put on your parachute, and you just, when you have these ups and downs. But as you go through your checklist and where you have to whatever double check on your gear, you're starting to rationalize the action. You don't rationalize your fear, but you're rationalizing the action, which makes you feel in control, right? Yeah. And therefore it feels like you're making a smart, educated decision, but you're still gonna jump off something.
But you feel a sense of like, I got this.
Yeah, exactly. And then as you visualize, it's like you, man. You're a snowboarder. When you're about to hit a kicker and you're gonna do a crazy trick, you picture in your head exactly how you're going to approach the tranny, how you're going to hit the lip of the jump, how you're going to spin or whatever in the air, where you're going to land, how you want to stomp it, and how you can ride away and burn off your speed, right? You go through that whole plan. It's the same thing with base jumping. You visualize each step to the edge of the cliff. Then based on if you're going to do a flip or not, where you're going to open, how you should open your parachute, and then are you going to have enough glide ratio to make it to the landing area, where you should make your last turn or your flight path that you need to take to make it safely on the ground. So you focus on all these stages, and that kind of distracts you a little bit, right? You're just kind of like, okay. But then the hard part is coming. That's when you're like, okay, I have the plan, I visualize the plan, I know what I have to do, but now I have to do it. And this is why we always give a count. You kind of relax, get in the zone, and you give the 3, 2, 1, see ya. That 3, 2, 1, the purpose of it is to tell you that you're already going and you haven't really gone. It's kind of like the materialization of the point of no return. And as you go, that's the hardest part, is to move that first foot after you've given the count, But, stay calm, and be ready to react and adapt and be chill about it. And everything will go fine.
Be chill about it. So at the point when you're jumping off, Matthias's advice is be chill about it.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I don't know. It's when you have been in.
I don't think it's that complicated. Like on a relatable level, like when you're describing this, it sounds like every major decision that anyone's ever made in life. You do a little bit of research, you walk through the steps in your mind, you decide what's the worst case scenario here. If I buy this house and it's too much money, I'm going to go into debt, that sort of thing. So we have these mental checklists that we go through in our mind before we make big decisions. And then when it comes time to make the decision, hopefully it's a more comfortable, easy process. You're like, okay, I've gone through all the steps in my mind.
Yeah.
Now all I have to do is step off and commit. And so you're talking about that, but on a very personal level, whereas if you are making a big decision in life, like which house to buy or what job to take, the consequences aren't nearly as fatal, literally.
Yeah, I mean it's bankruptcy versus death. That's two different things. Obviously, one, you're gonna lose everything, but you walk away with your life. The other one, you lose everything. But at the same time, it is such a beautiful commitment that I keep doing it, man. I gotta go back out there over and over again. I'm like a hamster in a wheel. Oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, this is amazing.
What would you say is the most memorable jump of your career?
Well, I have a few, amazing memories, but the ultimate one was this ski base jump in the Alps where we're skiing this peak outside of my hometown, and I grew up skiing Saint-Gervais-Megève, and so there's this peak outside of Megève called the Aiguille Croche, and it's a 1,000-foot run pretty much with a 600-foot cliff at the bottom. And as we were skiing down, it was just perfect spring powder with beautiful sun. My buddy was flying behind me in a speed flyer, little paraglider, so he was filming from above. And ski this whole thing, and then jump off the cliff, open my parachute, and it was pretty steep from the top, so I could see some slough coming off the cliff, and then jumping off, my parachute opens, and then I turn around, and the whole mountain broke, and there was a huge avalanche on our tail. And this video was shot many years ago, but it's still, escaping an avalanche by base jumping of a 600-foot cliff is still, I think, the coolest jump that I've ever done.
You sound like a superhero.
I know, man. It's I'm so glad I was able to film it, because if I went to the bar and I was like, hey, man, so today I skied this and I escaped an avalanche by base jumping off the cliff, everybody would be like, don't listen to that wino. He's full of it.
But that video, it definitely, it changed your life.
That video completely changed my life. It's funny, I was ski base jumping already, and I had some good exposure. I had been on CNN maybe 25 times, and Good Morning America a couple times. So I had some really cool breakthroughs as far as being an athlete, because I'm not competing anymore, so exposure is really important, right, as an athlete. But that video, not only the exposure, but the way we filmed it, we were able to completely organically share our experience with so many people. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, because as skiers and base jumpers or action sports athletes, we're pretty selfish, right? We go out there to live our passion or our dream and this and that. But the coolest part is when you can actually share that with people. And I swear you can definitely start a spiral of positivity by doing that, you know. Yeah. And that was the cool part about this was, yeah, all this amazing positive response around it. Yeah, it was really cool.
That is really cool. I remember watching that video for the first time, and I think one thing that it did was totally it captured the sensation that I imagine you guys were feeling. You know, it was so, the emotions were so raw, and you're just so stoked down at the bottom. You started beatboxing. I was like, wow, this guy's awesome.
I didn't even know.
I want to hang out with him. I want to go to Iceland with him.
Yeah, and then we went to Iceland together. That was sick.
That was really a great trip. I'm gonna just do a really quick pause and take a drink of this hum kombucha that you brought. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this is awesome. And for you guys listening, there's people tuning in on YouTube, which is a great experience. So if you're listening to the podcast app and you want to see where we're at and you want to see us shiver our butts off out here on the back of my car, check out the YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. But you definitely saw like social media change the way your career was shaped, right? Like, because of that video, because of how viral it went, like your whole career changed. So does social media change some of the decisions you make, like with jumping? For example, like would you choose to jump something that might be more dangerous just because you know the shot's going to turn out sick?
That's a very good and pertinent question for sure. I think what it goes back to is your intentions. And why are you doing what you're doing, right? And I don't think it's a smart idea to become a base jumper for the fame and glory. Because no, it's not. It's something you have to do for the right reasons. And I don't necessarily do a project just because it is super nerdy or this or that. I mean, I do it because it is nerdy, but I don't do it necessarily for the attention. Being able to share it is really cool, and I enjoy that. But I do it, first of all, because I'm inspired by whatever feature I see or whatever mountain I want to ski or a cliff I want to jump off. And yeah, you shouldn't be guided by just the amount of views or clicks that you're going to get in your video, because if you do that, I mean, many base jumpers have done that, but a lot of them are not around to talk about it anymore. You know, it's you got to make some smart decisions, and if you only focus on trying to outdo yourself all the time, it's you tremendously diminishing your chances of survival. Yeah.
That's one of the controversial things about base jumping, right? I mean, I've had quite a few friends in the industry that have passed away because of jumping stuff, and sometimes it's I don't know, it's really hard to know what the reason was, but sometimes it's a really simple thing, and sometimes it's a very complex reason. What's something that you've learned that has perhaps saved you?
Well, I've learned a lot of things from base jumping. The first one is to go back to emotions, right? Every emotion serves a purpose. That's my take on it. You know, some people choose to shut down the emotions, or some people choose to kind of steer the emotions. And I think there are organic emotions and conditioned emotions. Conditioned emotions would be the ones that kind of come from your intellect or your capacity of analysis, right? But your organic emotions are the ones that just boom, they just come and hit you. You fall in love, you get scared, or whatever it is, right? And these emotions, the raw organic emotions, are there to guide you through your environment. And I think they're kind of like a barometer, or like tools to it's like flight instruments through your life. And so definitely develop your emotional intelligence and being really aware of your surroundings, and that's the first thing that's going to really help you. Second, as you're jumping, learn from your mistakes and your friends' mistakes. When I have a friend die base jumping, every time it happens, I'm super sad, obviously, but the first thing I ask is obviously what happened and what can we learn from it. How can we avoid being in the same situation? Or if we're in the same situation, how can we recover from it? And so that's another lesson. Another one is pay your dues. I think that's the problem too in that world of social media and stuff like that. We all hear about instant gratification, and yeah, it's kind of cool, you know, like we all want to get the biggest bang for a buck, right? But most of the stuff doesn't come quickly. You're gonna have to, you know, you want to be all swole and jacked up. Well, you're gonna have to do 1,000 push-ups every day and go weightlift. You know, you want to be winning a math contest. Well, you're gonna have to crank math equations every day, all day, to be good at it. You want to be a pro skateboarder? Well, you're gonna have to skateboard every day, even when you don't want to skateboard. You want to be good at base jumping or survive base jumping? Well, go out there, pay your dues. Spend time skydiving. Spend time base jumping. Spend time thinking about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Establish a plan and jump the plan. And if the plan doesn't go according to what you were planning, make sure you can react and adapt and get out of there safely. So, and this is, a lot of it is more than just practical skills. It's a mindset. When you go to business school, you don't learn just business, whatever theories, and you know, you don't just study economics and finance. You learn to develop a business mindset. You want to learn to base jump? You better learn to start thinking as a base jumper. Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about your most memorable moment. That was definitely a high, but you've had some lows base jumping too. Like, what was the worst thing that's happened?
So that was brutal, actually. It was 3 weeks before the birth of my son. I had a very successful season, and I was going to do my last project before being home and being super dad for 5 months or 4 months before going back on other adventures, right? And I'm climbing this peak in the Alps called the Pointe d'Areux, and it's a peak that hadn't been skied until 2006. So, I mean, for things to not be skied until early 2000s in the Alps, it means that it's pretty serious, because people just hammer everything they see. And so I skied the whole mountain, and I attempted it before, but I turned around because the conditions were not right. But that day it seemed okay. It took me 5 hours to climb to the top, start skiing the face. It's about 45 degrees at the top, then it flattens out a little bit. There's a 700-foot cliff at the bottom. And then I was going to fly, you know, quite a ways to be able to go and land safely. And the wind was picking up a little bit, and but there was still some big lulls. So I decided to go anyway. It wasn't a perfect situation, but it was still not terrible, right? And as I'm skiing down, I couldn't feel it. The wind picked up, and right when I jumped, there was a rock spire on my right, so my parachute opened biting into the wind, so it opened facing the cliff. But then that current, that wind that was hitting the cliff created like a backdraft almost, you know, a thermal, and that wind threw me straight back into the cliff. I hit it 4 times. It knocked me out and broke my femur. I mean, I still don't remember if I got knocked out right away or if I was able to put some input in my lines, but anyway, my parachute turned around, and then I flew 4,000 feet unconscious all the way into the valley floor. I crash landed in some trees, fell another 50 feet onto dirt, and then got, 13 firefighters showed up within 5 minutes. Helicopter picked me up in 20 minutes. I was in the hospital an hour later, and they put in a brand new femur, and I woke up 3 days later in the hospital. I had 3 days in a coma, double brain hemorrhage, double fracture on my left femur, and they kept me 2 weeks, and then once my brain stopped bleeding, I was able to come home and made it just on time for the birth of my son. So it worked out, but yeah, it was definitely a rough one.
Yeah, so I just saw a little bit about this story, and in fact, I mean, I was connected to that story originally when you pitched it to me. That was like one of the ideas that you wanted to do, and
yeah,
that was a project that I supported as a creative director and sent Connor out there, and I got the phone call that had happened, and it was really hard, man. Like, we were definitely like, we were all really concerned for you, and that's one thing that I struggle with is like, is this like a sport that I want to promote even, like when I go to shoot base jumping and skydiving and stuff, I often think, like, I kind of do a mental check. I'm like, is this something you want to like promote and support? And my mentality has always been, well, if you work with the best people in the world, nothing's going to happen to these guys. These guys are the best. Like, but then that happened, and then we lost Roner and Yuli. I mean, There's been a lot of projects that I've worked on where those people that I thought were the best in the world, nothing would ever happen to them because they were so talented. Something did happen to them, and so that was a really hard thing to watch you go through. But to see your recovery, like I feel like I've watched kind of the whole process unfold, and you're doing really good, man. Like,
thanks, bro.
you come back great. Your jumps are looking awesome, and just saw the short little documentary. What's the documentary called?
It's called A Dying Breed Part 1, and it shows before the crash, when I crashed, and when I woke up in the hospital. And this winter we're gonna film Part 2, which is going back out there and doing it proper.
Yeah. For those of you tuning in, we'll put a link so you guys can check that out. But it's really cool. So you want to go back and you want to do that jump again?
Yeah. So when I woke up in the hospital, right away, I still don't remember the crash. I remember making my last few turns, but after that, it's just a big, dark hole. Like I'm missing 3 days of my life. But when I woke up, my dreams, I remember all my dreams, they're all about skiing powder and doing backflips. And so when I woke up, I knew the desire hadn't gone away, that the passion was still there. And right away I was like, I'm going to go back and do it. And then, eventually you go through your rehab and painful rehab and learning to jump again. And in a short amount of time, that's what's hard. You're trying to get your skills back and your confidence back that took years to build in the first place.
Yeah.
But you're trying to do that and crank in a few months. I couldn't walk for 3 months. Started skydiving 4 months later, base jumping 6 months later. It took me a year to ski base jump. So through that process, I was like, oh man, maybe I should just forget about that jump. It's okay. Like nobody conquers the mountain. The mountain lets you travel through safely or not. It's when you hear, oh, conquer the mountain. It's like, yeah, whatever, man. No, the mountain's always stronger than you. And I was like, okay, maybe I just need to leave this one and not get back to it. And then I went back to paying my dues and just jumping and doing simple jumps or cool projects, but I wasn't doing any fancy crazy tricks in there, or I still did some daring stuff, but I kept it at 80% for a long time. Yeah. And then through that process I felt strong and confident again. And one morning I was hiking at Smith Rocks, and at sunrise I was by myself, early in the morning, like 5 in the morning or something, and I'm like running up the Misery Trail. I'm at the top of the cliff band in like 10 minutes, feeling super strong. And as I'm hiking / running uphill, I'm thinking, I'm already elaborating a plan on how to do that cliff. And then I get to the top, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Have you even asked yourself whether you should do it or not? And then that's when I realized, like, well, if I don't do it, I'm always going to be plotting how I could have done it or how I should do it, probably for the rest of my life. So. And there is a rational, safe way to do it. So it's an engaged and daring jump. There's definitely a lot of hazards, but I've got it. So I decided a couple years ago that I was going to do it again. And last winter was the winter I was committing to doing it, but then the conditions were not right. So I just, I'm waiting. And as soon as hopefully it opens up this winter, I'm going to go and get it done. And it's whenever the mountains tell me that I can do it, then I'll go and do it.
Wow. Would it be the first time anyone's ever done that? Ski base jumped off that?
It was the first ski base jump of that thing,
yeah.
For sure. And so I don't count it as a successful ski base jump, because I always say if you're hurt or you're dead, it wasn't a successful base jump. And
That's fair.
I survived, but I was hurt. So even though it was a first, it doesn't count as doing it proper. So I'm going to go back and do it proper. And yeah, he'll be a first. And yeah, exactly. So I'm anxious, I'm anxious, but I'm excited.
I'm excited to see that too. Do you have like a lot of first ascents?
I do have a lot of first descents and first base jumps.
In the Alps, or mostly in the U.S., or mixed?
All over the world. I have a lot all over Europe and all over the U.S. Mainly that's the only place. Oh, and one in Chile as well.
Are those skiing or ski base jumping?
Ski base jumping, and then Iceland. I have a few first descents in Iceland too.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of skiers now, and it's hard to get a lot of first descents anymore. Even you go to the Alps, even though they're massive mountains, a lot of stuff has been skied. So it's a little. There's more projects that you can do as a ski base jumper that are first ski base jumping descents, or even if somebody skied part of that mountain, nobody has skied the other part because there's a cliff at the bottom. So
yeah, And that's one thing that drew you to it, wasn't it? Like, you were skiing a bunch and you were really good at skiing, sponsored skier, and you're like, man, there's all these lines that I want to do, but I can't because there's like an exit point where like a point of no return. That's what I'm trying to think.
Exactly.
There's a point of no return. But if I had this backpack with a parachute in it, I could go off and then ski base.
That's exactly it, man. It's for me, the parachute is a tool to be able to ski things that you couldn't ski otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's really cool because all of a sudden it opens so many possibilities. And it's kind of like, you know, when surfers back in the day started towing themselves into waves that they were too big or too hard to catch paddling, but all of a sudden they could surf all these waves because they had traction from, you know, a mechanical thing, but they were able to catch these waves and actually really surf them.
Yeah.
Ski base jumping is like that, except that there's not even an engine involved. It's just a pure air activated mechanic, like a parachute. It's a canopy, and you have skis, a backpack, and a piece of tarp, and you go and get it done. It's amazing.
Let's talk about fear for a second, because that is one of the biggest parts about base jumping. I mean, it's like one of the central things that you either have to overcome or figure out if you want to do base jumping. I found it was really interesting. I did like I want to say like 5-year long project with Jeb. It may have only been 3 or 4, but it felt like 5 for sure. And we did a documentary on Jeb and his crash and his road to recovery, and it was a really cool story. But I interviewed him over the course of that making of that film, which took us like 3 years. And over the course of all the different interviews, I kind of watched him come to the conclusion that the one thing that he was trying to overcome with base jumping was fear. But at the end of the day, fear was the thing that's going to save him from not dying base jumping. And so it's kind of this weird relationship where you want to conquer it. I want to beat fear. You know, I'm going to show I don't have any fear. I'm going to jump off this cliff. But he was like, the conclusion is like, if you want to live, you have to have fear. And that's true, isn't it?
It's true. And I think for a long time, I mean, you don't really conquer fear, right? Fear is always going to be there. And it's a love-hate relationship. I have a love-hate relationship with fear. I love what fear makes me do, but I hate going through the process of fear. It's painful. I don't really enjoy the adrenaline and all this stuff. It's just, these are powerful but very uncomfortable byproducts of jumping. But you have to go through it to get it done, right?
So you deal with it. You don't conquer it.
You don't conquer it, and you just... so my friend Kristen Ulmer is probably the master on fear analysis. She wrote a book called The Art of Fear, and I highly recommend it if anybody's interested in this, because pretty much she talks about how conquering your fear doesn't work and what you do instead. And I think throughout my career, you know, I learned to rationalize my actions to be able to manage my fear at best, right? I was never ignoring my fear. Yeah. But then eventually, when you do it enough and you become smart enough at what you're doing and about your fear, you learn to use it as a tool, and it's an incredibly powerful thing. And I don't believe fear is negative. It's just it makes people do negative things, but you can use it as something to do something positive, right? And that's
what could be an example of that? Because that's an interesting statement.
Okay, so
like using fear to do something.
For example, let's take another realm, as you know, the world of action sports or base jumping, whatever. You're studying sharks, right? But before you even study sharks, you're scared of sharks and you just swim away hard in the water and you get eaten, or you try to kill the sharks and you're just like, whatever, this is, you know, these things are dangerous and they're mean and blah blah. Well, no, they're not mean and they're not necessarily dangerous. It's just you can put yourself, they are dangerous, but only if you put yourself in the situation where it's dangerous. So the next step would be, okay, you educate yourself about sharks. You know, become like a marine biologist if you can. That's what my manager did, actually, Luke Tipple, and he dives with great white sharks. And then how is he able to dive with great white sharks? Because he has educated himself about sharks. He's still scared of him, so this way he has this buffer, right? This notion of fear inspires respect, and by having respect, you're going to be on your toes, you're going to be careful, and then he has actually studying sharks for their protection, and that's something, right there. He turned his fear of sharks into evolved into respect, and using that as something positive. Another thing, my friend Dave Watson, for example, he's climbed Everest a couple times. The first time he climbed Everest, he had never gone over 14,000 feet in his life.
Wow.
And he goes to Everest, and one day he's like, okay, this is the time. He's sleeping in his stand, and he just gets out of his stand and starts climbing Everest. And there's a ton of people climbing Everest, right? All the people are roped in on the same rope, and it's like this highway to the top, and he's like, screw this. So he just unhooked himself from the rope and just started just climbing up by himself, and got to the top by himself, hung out 20 minutes, then hiked back down. And yeah, it was extremely hard, and he pushed himself physically and mentally to be able to do these things. But that same day, 6 people died climbing Everest. So I asked him, I was like, Dave, what made the difference between you climbing Everest so, I don't want to say easily, but so smoothly, right?
Yeah.
And 6 people dying that day climbing Everest. And he was like, I just waited for the time to be right, and I was scared and respectful, and I just, it was almost like a spiritual experience for him. It just felt right, and he did it right. Whereas some people go there and they want to conquer the mountain, or this or that, or blah, 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 and all of a sudden one thing goes wrong, and then they start panicking, and then nothing goes wrong, and then it's a horrible chain reaction, and boom, they're dead,
Yeah.
and that's it. So it's about the approach, how you can use your fear to make you go out of control, or actually you use it as a tool to focus and narrow down your mind and your focus on what you're supposed to do, and establish a strategy to be able to get it done.
Yeah.
And fear in many ways is a motivator for me.
Yeah.
And if I approach a project and I don't really feel much excitement or anticipation or fear from it, it's probably not going to be that cool of a project, right? If you want to go beyond, you're supposed to experience that tremendous discomfort. And that's what fear is, right? It's just discomfort.
Yeah. So you have passions outside of base jumping. We can lighten the mood up a little bit here.
I do have a lot of passions outside of base jumping.
Yeah, what kind of stuff are you into?
I love surfing. I'm not that great at it, especially since I broke my femur, but I still love it. So I try to surf as much as I can. And I'm trying to get back to where I was before on a surfboard. I do skateboard as much as I can with my son. Same thing, I'm horrible at skateboarding, but I love it.
Yeah,
and
that's
another fear too. Like, I watch this little dude drop into like 6-foot bowls and carve walls, and I'm like terrified, but he's going through the process of using his fear wisely. The other day, actually, he was trying to do tail taps on the coping in the 6-foot half pipe. I mean, the kid is 5, that's like massive for him. And then,
Shredding.
And he's telling me, he's like, I'm scared, I'm so scared. And I'm like, that's good that you're scared, Soren. He's like, why is it good? And he goes, because it means I have to pay attention. I was like, exactly. So if you're scared, it means that it's dangerous, and therefore you have to pay attention. Fear is just there to tell you that you have to pay attention. That's it. And then, so what do you need to do? Oh, you need to do this and that and that. Okay, so if you do this and that, is it going to go well? I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, so close your eyes and picture it in your head. And he closed his eyes and he's like, okay, I see it in my head. I have to do it. I was like, okay, go and do it. And then boom, on the 5th try, he did it perfect. And it didn't come right away, of course, but and right there, that's another cool passion I have, is to help my son develop his skills as a skateboarder. That's super freaking fun. And kind of, it's more than just skateboarding, is being a mentor. I think that's the most I mean, anybody can have a kid, right? There's life is beautiful, but it's there's many parents out there, and it's like, okay, what sets you apart? And to be able to be super impactful on your kid is to be able to be a mentor. I think that's a beautiful role. I'm not saying the role of a parent is not beautiful, but the role of mentor, you're taking it to the next step, right? Parent is there for your safety. A mentor is there for your accomplishment.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
That is a cool thing. So being a dad now, I mean, it must make you think twice about some of your projects, right?
Yeah, being a dad makes you obviously you have something super important to go back to, right? The goal is to come home. And I do love taking risk and putting myself in these situations. when I go on some trip, I'm like, oh my God, this is so hairy. Like, if I don't do that right, I might not go home. And part of me hates it, you know, the idea of, you know, not being there for my son, but I love the excitement from it. But therefore, I don't take huge gnarly risk as often, but when I do take risk, like, I'm gonna take a huge risk, you know. I'm gonna go for this huge project. I just it's just the frequency of it. The more you do it, the more you increase the probability of something happening. It's just math, right? It's not if, it's when. Yeah. And so if I just kind of spend my time doing a little more, you know, less engaged skiing or less engaged jumping, then I don't have to go and, you know, do a crazy double backflip on the 250-foot cliff on skis and open 30 feet off the ground. You don't want to do that every day. You can do that just once in a while. Or I'm not going to escape an avalanche every day by base jumping off a cliff, right? Yeah. But you're able to do that by just paying your dues and just training and skiing and jumping a lot. So I do spend a lot more time training, and I think it also helps me train more mentally. I try to be a lot more sharper when I do it. A lot more sharper. That's horrible. A lot sharper when I do it. I need to go back to school and learn English.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that's it. I changed my approach in the sense that I'm not stopping what I'm doing. I'm just a lot more thorough about it.
Which is smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
More smarter.
More smarter.
Just doing the play on words there. Right on. So this is a controversial statement right here. Is base jumping akin to drugs? Because what you're, let me just, I'm going to break the silence and just say, like, what you're describing seems a lot like hardcore drugs to me. You know, it's like you're getting this selfish thrill out of doing something, but it is also potentially harmful for your family if you were to go too far.
It's true. I understand what you're trying to say. I humbly disagree. A drug is by definition detrimental. You know, if you do drugs, like, drugs are slowly killing you. Base jumping is not slowly killing you. It will kill you if you really mess up, right?
Yeah.
And a drug is not constructive. Base jumping has been hugely constructive for me. Yeah, it's very daring, it's very dangerous, but it has allowed me to turn dreams into a reality, to create a life for myself and for my family.
Yeah.
And a drug doesn't do that. A drug destroys yourself and everything around it. And so I disagree. I mean, I do understand there is on the biological chemical level. Yeah, adrenaline is addictive. We all become, but I mean, you know, it's just like checking your Instagram, your Facebook every day. Isn't that a drug? I mean, people are like, they're addicted to social media.
Yeah.
That's way more dangerous than base jumping, man.
Right on. I love it. No, I really respect your opinion on that.
Thank you.
I can tell you've thought about it.
Well, you know, yeah, I mean,
which is good. Like, it's good to...
You, in the end, it's... Base jumping for me, maybe it's because I'm French, but it's an existential journey, right? It's an intellectual and emotional journey. And you have to think about what you're doing, you know? It's not just this mindless act. It's something thorough. And it's just like surfing, man. Most people, you talk about surfing, they just go beyond just, you know, sliding on water, going down a wave. They're going to talk about the whole experience of being in the ocean and seeing, like, marine life and what they feel physically when they paddle, and how their mind is cleared and they feel sharper when they get out of the water. It's the same thing with base jumping. I guess it's part of your growth as a human. For me, I experience growth through base jumping and skiing. Yeah. There's many other ways to experience it, you know. Yeah. And but it's been it's a physical quest through an inside journey.
Yeah, totally. And it allows you to come back to certain things that you're going through in life with a different perspective, I'm sure. Absolutely.
And there's days, you know, where, you know, we all have, you know, mortgages to pay and things to solve and whatever, you know, and personal life where we have to solve things all the time, and sometimes things get blurry and a little confusing, right? One of the best things I can do is when things get a little complicated, I'm gonna wake up at 4 in the morning and do a base jump at sunrise, and then boom, the second I land, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go home, cooking breakfast for the family, I've got this, I've got that, I've got my to-do list. I'm like so efficient, I know where I'm going. It clears your mind and gives you direction, and that's beautiful. And I think that's the purpose of a passion, man. It's to tell you what matters and what doesn't in the end. Yeah. It's not that complicated.
And I think that's the key right there, like the purpose of a passion, you know, because it's not going to be base jumping for everybody, but for somebody, you know, I was joking with Brandon Palnick. It was like, could be, you know, we were talking about bringing people together and how passions can bring people together, which is really cool. We talked about quilting, you know, like it could honestly be like quilting for someone, like sitting down, going through that process could give them that same sensation that you're walking away with, you know, like a clearer mind. And
absolutely.
That's something really important about that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think it's, I mean, let's face it, man, you know, I don't want to sound like an idealist, but if people spend more time focusing on their passions, they would spend a lot less time trying to hurt others. Yeah. I think a passion is constructive, man. Yeah. It's whether you want to start a spiral of positivity or you want to start a downward spiral, and most likely people in a downward spiral are going to take people down with them. So be constructive. Go out there and feel accomplished and create yourself. I think it's BS when people are like, oh, you got to find yourself. It's like, no, there's no need to find yourself. You know what you like, you know what you don't like, and you kind of know what you want to, what you enjoy in life. So just go out there and do it more often, and create a structure so you can just feel accomplished through that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a lot better for yourself and a lot better for everybody around you.
Yeah, I love that. And it's the positive passions, right? Like the ones that aren't harming people, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Super cool, man. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I think that's a great place to end it. I am freezing. I just saw one of our cameras turn off because it's so freaking cold out here.
I can't feel my toes.
Yeah, me neither. Right on. Well, thank you so much for joining the show, man. We'll throw some links in the description, and
thanks for having me.
If anyone's out there, you know, check out Matthias. Where can they find you?
Instagram at @SuperFrenchieOfficial. Facebook is facebook.com/SuperFrenchieOfficial. And my Twitter is at Matthias Giraud, my real name. And if you make it to Mount Bachelor here, watch for a guy with a yellow hum kombucha helmet zooming down the mountain, and come say hi and let's take some runs together.
I love it. All right, thank you, man.
All right, thanks for having me, bro. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you want to learn more about this series, make sure to subscribe to BeAlive on their YouTube or podcast app. You can also find them on other social channels. I'm Zak Shelhamer, and until the next one, stay stoked.